Self-acceptance is a rough road to take. One day you see all the good in yourself, then only recognize the parts you hate the next. But that's the thing about self-acceptance. It's a continuous journey that has its ups and downs, progress and regress. End of Evangelion embraces that theme wholeheartedly, that self-acceptance is a difficult but worthwhile endeavor. It's a message the film's characters learn, but not without spiraling down a rabbit hole of hate and self-deprecation. These characters' flaws are put front and center to deliver a message anyone can relate to. Acceptance makes us better people. Let's start with Asuka. She's a character that has always desperately sought the validation of others ever since her mother neglected her after developing a mental illness. This film shows Asuka at her lowest. She'd just awoken from an injury-induced coma and can barely pilot an Eva because of her emotional distress. The confidence she once had as a pilot was gone, and she fears that she'll die if she fights Seal. But it's her fear of death, her fear of losing to something, which made her realize that there was once someone who truly accepted her. Her mother. The validation from the person she needed it the most was what drove Asuka to fight back. This acceptance of her mother's love gave her a renewed sense of purpose. This was Asuka in her prime. It shows how welcoming acceptance from those we love helps us become the best versions of ourselves. But it also shows that external validation isn't the only thing you need to survive. But what happens when you deny yourself of love from others? You get Gendo. Gendo blamed nobody but himself for Yui's death, so much so that he believed he was undeserving of any form of love from anyone. He became afraid of forming any meaningful connections, terrified that he'd lose someone he cared about again, all without realizing that the person who cared about him the most was the person he left at the train station. It's his fear of acceptance of others that not only drove him deeper into his obsession of reuniting with Yui, but also developed Shinji's self-loathing. Gendo's character shows how closing ourselves off from others can turn us into apathetic monsters who hurt those around us. Misato and Rei are two sides of the same coin. Misato is someone who has difficulty communicating emotionally and only knows how physically, using hedonistic pleasures like sex and alcohol to avoid the trauma of his father's death. Rei, on the other hand, is just a clone, devoid of any human emotion. She doesn't know how to live for herself nor form emotional connections and only knows how to pilot an Eva. But these inherent flaws don't stop them from trying anyway. By recognizing their own inadequacies, Misato does her best as Shinji's surrogate mother and Rei does her best to live for herself. This acceptance of their own shortcomings helped Misato convince Shinji to take control over his own life, and helped Rei to stand up to Gendo and choose Shinji's happiness. This acceptance of what they lack motivated them to connect with those they cared about, no matter how painful it was to brush over their own scars. This leaves us with one more character. Shinji carries all the worst traits the rest of the characters have. He's desperate for external validation, feels undeserving of love, is afraid of being in touch with his emotions, and would rather be an emotionless husk. His lack of self-acceptance is an inner turmoil, which has always felt insurmountable, just like when Shinji fights against the angels. It's an internal battle which, almost all the time, he wants to run away from. Every time Shinji tries to accept himself, the world around him always seems to push back, which is proven in this scene when Shinji decides to confront Seal, and consequently, himself. But he immediately loses all hope when he sees Asuka torn limb by the angels. It's that devastating feeling that whatever right you think you do, nothing ever seems to go your way. The road to self-acceptance can often screw you over before leading you to the right path. But for Shinji, all the roads he's taken have only led him to despise himself even more. The only things he hears are the hate he's thrown himself, voiced by those he loves. Though his hands are a tool to protect mankind, all Shinji could see were the cruel actions his hands are capable of. And it breaks him. That's why he drags the rest of humanity with him to Third Impact with the promise of a world free of pain. Shinji thinks that what he's done will fill the gaps of love and acceptance he has always yearned for, but it's merely a fantasy he hides behind to run away from reality, from responsibility, from hurt, from change, from loving others, from being loved, and from himself. He's created a world without pain, but it's a world with nothing at all. This low in Shinji's journey to self-acceptance helps repressed realizations surface. Shinji realizes that he needs to take control of his own life in order to find the joy in living despite the pain, to forgive himself for his mistakes despite how sickening it feels, to open himself to love despite his flaws. These realizations are put to the test in the final scene of the film when Shinji returns to Earth beside Asuka, who reminds Shinji of how much he thinks he failed the people he cared about. So, he does this. Not only is he strangling Asuka, but also the part himself that yearned for acceptance. But Asuka does something different. An act of compassion. Shinji represented the parts of herself that she hated, so when Asuka learns that she too must accept those parts, she in turn accepts Shinji. He is shown acceptance despite the pain they've caused each other. And it's true. How disgusting, how alien it is to allow forgiveness to wash over you when all you've ever known is self-loathing. When it is made known to Shinji that he is loved and is deserving of love, he finally gives in to acceptance. The road to self-acceptance is a journey all of us have taken at one point in our lives, and the End of Evangelion never shies away to tell how painful but worthwhile that journey is. The title cards for both the series ending and this film reflect that journey. It's a journey that consists of searching for validation, self-deprecation, recognizing one's worth, and finally, love. It's a journey that is never smooth, and these characters reflect how hard that journey is. End of Evangelion shows how difficult it is for any of us to look in the mirror and accept ourselves for who we really are. But End of Evangelion also shows that self-acceptance is worth the struggle. Misato put it best when she encouraged Shinji to fight back right before the film's climax.
今の自分が絶対じゃないわ。後で間違いに気づき後悔する。私はその繰り返しだった。ぬか喜びと自己嫌悪を重ねるだけ。でもその度に前に進めた気がする。何のためにここに来たのか、何のためにここにいるのか、今の自分の答えを見つけなさい。
So, have you heard of the Hedgehog's dilemma?